What happens when a morning show built on warmth and easy conversation invites a guest who refuses to play nice? On this episode of CBS Mornings, Meghan Markle walks into the studio expecting another soft-focus platform. What she finds instead is Gayle King's calm but persistent questions, and three anchors who slowly realize they're sitting in the middle of a live-on-air powder keg. By the time the cameras stop rolling, the royal image, the friendly set, and the unspoken rules of daytime TV will all be in pieces. The CBS Morning studio glowed with soft golds and creams, like a palace reimagined for New York television. Tall, ornate panels framed the background, lit just enough to catch the shimmer without stealing attention from the couches in the center. On one side sat Gayle King in a sharp red pantsuit, posture open but poised, papers balanced neatly on her lap. Tony Dokoupil and Nate Burleson flanked her in navy and charcoal suits, both relaxed, both smiling, both used to early morning chaos. The only thing that felt different this morning was the air. It carried a kind of quiet anticipation, the kind that made camera operators double-check their framing and producers glance at the monitor one extra time. "Stand by," a voice called from behind the cameras. "We're coming back in. 3, 2... The light above the primary camera flared red. "Welcome back to CBS Mornings," Gayle said, voice warm and smooth as ever. "We are joined now by a woman who is no stranger to global attention. She is an actress, a mother, a philanthropist, and, of course, the Duchess of Sussex. Meghan Markle is here with us in studio. Meghan, good morning." Meghan sat on the far-left couch, angled slightly toward the trio of hosts. She wore a fitted navy dress that hugged her shoulders and fell neatly below her knees, paired with nude heels and perfectly styled waves over one shoulder. Her hands were folded in her lap, but her chin was lifted just a bit higher than necessary, eyes steady, expression carefully neutral. "Morning," she said. No bright smile, just a small curve of the lips that didn't quite touch her eyes. "Thanks for having me." Gayle's smile held, undisturbed. "We're glad you're here," she replied. "You've been at the center of so many conversations over the last few years, about the monarchy, about the media, about mental health and identity. Today, we want to talk about where you are now, how life actually feels, away from the institution and here in the States." Meghan gave a soft, almost amused exhale. "People always want to know how life feels," she said, making air quotes with one hand. "I suppose that's easier than confronting why it had to change in the first place." There was a small ripple of polite laughter from the audience, but the tone behind her words was sharper than the reaction. Tony leaned forward, picking up the thread. "Well, let's start with something simple," he said. "You've been living in California with Harry and the kids for a few years now. What does a normal day look like for you?" Meghan glanced at him, then back to Gayle, as if deciding whether the question was even worth answering. "A normal day," she repeated, rolling the words around. "I'm not sure my life has ever been normal, Tony. People insist on projecting their fantasies onto me. Some think I'm trapped in a castle. Others imagine I'm barefoot in a Montecito garden, reading poetry to hummingbirds." Nate chuckled under his breath. "That doesn't sound so bad," he offered, trying to keep it light. Meghan's gaze flicked to him. "For you, maybe," she said. "For me, it's just another narrative written by people who need me to fit into something they can understand." Gayle's fingers tightened slightly around her note cards, but her tone stayed easy. "I think what Tony meant," she said, "was more about your routine, school runs, work calls, family time, the things that make up a life." "Right," Meghan replied, her voice still cool. "Well, I wake up, I breathe, I exist, I make decisions. The rest is really none of anyone's business, no matter how much they feel entitled to it." The audience's reaction this time was quieter. No laughter, just a murmur. Tony glanced at Gayle. Nate shifted ever so slightly in his seat. Gayle nodded slowly. "You've spoken a lot about feeling scrutinized," she said gently. "Do you feel that even now, being here, talking with us?" Meghan arched a brow. "I feel scrutinized every time someone expects me to package my life into digestible, inspirational sound bites," she said. "I'm not a quote, I'm a person." Nate stepped in, palms open in a calming gesture. "Totally hear you on that," he said. "At the same time, you have a podcast, you've done big interviews, you've written essays. So clearly you believe in sharing some parts of your story. What makes this different?" Meghan considered him for a moment, then gave a small, tight smile. "My projects are on my terms," she said. "This," she gestured vaguely at the studio, the cameras, the hosts, "is on yours. There's a difference." Gayle's practiced professionalism didn't waver, but the slightest furrow appeared between her brows. "Let's talk about those terms then," she said. You and Harry stepped back from royal duties, started building your own ventures, production, philanthropy, speaking. Some people see that as empowering. Others say you've been redefining what royalty means for a new generation. How do you see it? Meghan tilted her head, her tone turning almost bored. I don't spend my time worrying about what some people see, she replied. I didn't leave one institution just to become trapped in another one made of public opinion polls. Gayle tried again, her voice still soft. But your story has inspired a lot of people. Do you feel any responsibility to them? Responsibility, Meghan echoed with a faint, humorless laugh. That's such a convenient word people use when they want access. You have a responsibility to share, to smile, to explain, to justify. I think I've done more than enough of that for one lifetime. There was a strange, tense silence. In the control room, a producer leaned closer to the glass, watching every micro-expression. Tony shifted in his seat. I want to bring Harry into this, he said carefully. When you both sat down for that big special a few years ago, viewers saw a couple very united, very in sync. How has your relationship evolved since then, especially with all the pressure and the public reactions? Meghan's face hardened just a touch. I always find it interesting when people who don't know us at all feel entitled to grade our marriage, she said. Harry and I are fine. Better than fine. We've survived things that would crush most couples. So if anyone is waiting for a neat little update, they can keep waiting. Nate leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I don't think anyone's grading you, he said gently. I think people just... Meghan cut him off. People just want whatever keeps them entertained, she said. Today it's me. Tomorrow it'll be someone else they can dissect. Gayle inhaled slowly, the breath almost visible. She glanced at her notes, then looked up again, eyes kind but steady. Meghan, I hear your frustration, she said. I really do. But I also know you chose to be here, in this chair, on this show. You said you wanted to talk about your work, your projects, what's next. Can you tell us about something you're excited about right now? For the first time, Meghan hesitated. Excited, she repeated, as if the word itself was suspect. I'm excited about moving beyond this constant demand that I explain myself. I'm excited about people learning how to focus on causes instead of personalities. Though, she added, lips curling, interviews like this do make that difficult. The jab was subtle, but it landed. Tony's eyes flicked to Gayle again. Nate's jaw tightened for a split second. Gayle smiled, but there was a new weight in it. All right, she said, still calm. Let's talk about causes then. You've spoken about mental health, especially after your experience in the UK. A lot of viewers have connected deeply with that. Have you found healing? Meghan's expression closed further. Healing doesn't perform on command, she said. It doesn't show up just because a morning show segment needs a hopeful arc. The audience made a low, uncomfortable sound. Gayle's fingers tapped once, softly against her cards. I'm not asking you to perform, Gayle replied, voice gentle but firmer now. I'm asking you how you are, that's all. And I'm telling you, Meghan said, that how I am is not a commodity to be unwrapped between commercial breaks. For a long second, the two women simply looked at each other, Gayle measured, composed, Meghan unflinching, almost daring. Nate cleared his throat, trying to ease the tension. I think what Gayle is saying, he offered, is that a lot of people watching have gone through their own struggles. Hearing how you've coped could really help them. Meghan's eyes flashed. Then maybe those people should seek professionals, she said. Not project their healing onto a stranger they've decided to turn into a symbol. Gayle's smile finally faltered, just a crack. Tony shifted in his seat. The energy in the room was shifting from awkward to electric. Okay, Gayle said quietly, gathering herself. Let's take a breath here. When we come back, I want to ask you about your children, your life as a mom in America, and how you see their future, whether you still feel connected to the royal family at all. Meghan's gaze sharpened at the mention of the children, at the word royal. She crossed her legs a little tighter, jaw set. Sure, she said coolly, if we must. The camera light dimmed as they cut to commercial, but the tension didn't. In the silence of the studio, as makeup artists hovered and producers whispered in the corners, Gayle King sat in her red suit, eyes on Meghan Markle, already understanding that the next segment wasn't going to be just another morning show chat. It was going to be a test of just how far respect could stretch before it finally snapped. The band's smooth transition music faded out, and the red light above the main camera lit up again. The audience straightened in their seats, some exchanging quick looks. They could feel it too. The air had thickened. Gayle turned back to camera, smile restored, but a touch tighter than before. Welcome back to CBS Mornings, she said. We're here with Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, talking about her life, her work, and what comes next. She angled her body toward Meghan, softening her tone. Meghan, before the break, we mentioned your children. A lot of parents watching this morning are juggling work, family, and trying to protect their kids from the pressures of the world. How do you and Harry navigate that? For a moment, Meghan simply looked at her, one brow lifted as if weighing how offensive the question was allowed to be. We navigate it, she said at last, by doing something radical, parenting our own children instead of outsourcing our judgment to strangers. There was a small, uncomfortable laugh from one corner of the audience, more out of reflex than humor. Gayle let it pass, keeping her voice gentle. Of course, she replied. What I meant was, given your profile, the attention around your family, do you take extra steps? More security? Tighter boundaries? Things like that? Meghan's lips thinned. We take the steps any responsible parents would, she said. The fact that people are fascinated by our children doesn't make them less ours. Tony leaned forward, trying to soften the tension. Do they understand any of it yet? He asked. Do they know they're part of a very famous family? Meghan's gaze swung to him, eyes cool. They know they're loved, she said. That's more important than teaching them their family tree is a global spectacle. Totally, Nate said, nodding. But you did grow up with a very different reality. No royal titles, no palaces. Do you ever worry that, in protecting them, you might also be, I don't know, sealing them off from a part of who they are? Meghan's jaw tightened. Are you asking if I feel guilty for giving them a healthier environment than I had? She said sharply. Nate held up a hand. Not guilty, just wondering if you ever think about that balance. The balance, she repeated, almost mocking. Everyone's obsessed with balance. My job is to keep my children safe, not to satisfy some romantic idea the world has about princes and princesses in gilded cages. Gayle's fingers brushed the edge of her note cards. She'd done journalism long enough to recognize when someone came to an interview not to converse, but to parry. Still, she wasn't ready to let go of the thread. Let me ask it this way, she said. You've said in previous interviews that some of what you experienced inside the monarchy was deeply painful. If, one day, one of your children wanted to reconnect with that side of the family, spend time in the UK, maybe even take on some public responsibilities, would you support that? Meghan gave a short, humorless laugh. I find it interesting that people assume my children will spend their lives orbiting an institution we chose to leave, she said. They're not props in anyone's fantasy about the Spare's kids. If they grow up and decide to explore that world, that will be their decision. But I won't groom them to serve a system that never served me. Tony nodded slowly. So you don't see them as royal at all? I see them as my children, she said crisply. The world can label them however it needs to sleep at night, the audience murmured. On the far side of the set, a producer rubbed his temples, already imagining the headlines. Gayle inhaled, exhaled. I want to turn to Harry for a moment, she said. We've seen him in interviews, in his book, speaking very candidly about his family, about grief, about feeling like the Spare. How is he doing now? Meghan's expression softened for a fraction of a second, then hardened again, as if she'd caught herself showing too much. Harry is Harry, she said vaguely. He's finding his way, as we all are, away from structures that were never designed to protect him. Does he miss them? Tony asked. His father, his brother? A flicker passed through her eyes. Annoyance, maybe, or something more raw. I find it remarkable, Meghan said slowly, that people who have watched those same individuals fail to protect him still insist on framing everything around what he might be missing. Gayle's voice stayed calm. Families are complicated, she said. You can be hurt and still miss people. It's not always either or. Do you ever see a future where there's real reconciliation? Meghan's lips curved, but it wasn't a smile. The future is not a talk show segment, she replied. And reconciliation is not a storyline you wrap before a commercial break. Whatever happens between Harry and his family will happen privately, if it happens at all. But you've shared a lot of that journey publicly, Gayle pointed out gently. In documentaries and interviews, do you ever worry that by telling so much, you've made private reconciliation harder? The question hung there. The audience held its breath. Meghan's eyes cooled a few degrees. What I worry about, she said, each word precise, is this persistent expectation that we should prioritize the comfort of people who benefited from our silence over our right to speak. Gayle's shoulders rose and fell. She nodded, acknowledging the point, even as something in her expression tightened. All right, she said, let's move to your life here, in America. You've talked about feeling more free, more able to define yourself on your own terms. What has surprised you most about this chapter? Meghan tilted her head, as if the question bored her. How unwilling people are to accept that I've moved on, she said. They say they're tired of hearing about the monarchy, and yet every interview, every headline drags me back to that world. It's as if they can't handle the idea that I might exist beyond their fascination. Nate leaned in, trying again to ground the conversation. Okay, let's go beyond it then, he said lightly. What brings you joy right now? A project, a small daily ritual, anything. There was a beat. Meghan looked at him as though he'd asked her to perform a trick. Joy, she repeated, almost skeptically. Joy is private. It's not something I'm required to display like a trophy, so people feel better about the noise they've created around me. Nate sat back, hands raised slightly. Got it, he said, a touch of tension in his voice now. Just asking. Gayle glanced at him. Thank you. I'll take it from here, then turned back to Meghan. You've said a few times that you're tired of people wanting pieces of you, she said, and I respect that. I also know you and Harry have made a conscious choice to be public figures, to sign deals, to create media about your lives. Some viewers might be watching and thinking, if you don't want to share, why keep doing interviews like this? What would you say to them? Meghan's eyes sharpened, the edges of her patience visibly fraying. I would say that assumptions like that are exactly the problem, she replied. People imagine I'm here because I'm desperate to be seen. Maybe, just maybe, I'm here because I'm constantly asked to defend myself, and sometimes it's easier to walk into the fire than to keep pretending it's not burning. The metaphor was dramatic, and she seemed pleased with it. The audience, less so, shifted again in their seats. Tony and Nate exchanged a glance that said, "This is getting away from us." Gayle was still, centered in her red suit, breathing slowly through her nose. Meghan, she said, voice soft but firmer now, I want to be really clear with you, and with our viewers. We invited you here because we believe your story matters, and because there's value in hearing directly from you. We're not here to attack you. We are, however, going to ask questions. That's our job. Meghan's chin lifted. And my job, she shot back, is to protect myself from being turned into entertainment for people who will never understand what it cost me to leave. That may be, Gayle replied, the first hint of steel threading through her warmth. But you are on a television show. People are watching. They're trying to understand. When every question is met with hostility, it makes that harder, not easier. There it was, the first open acknowledgement of the energy in the room. The audience reacted with a low murmur, waiting to see what Meghan would do with it. Meghan leaned back, folding her arms, a small, incredulous smile touching her lips. Hostility, she mused. Is that what we're calling boundaries now? Nate's eyes widened just slightly. Tony cleared his throat. I don't think anyone's criticizing boundaries, Tony said carefully. We're just picking up on a lot of tension, which I'm sure our viewers feel too. Gayle didn't break eye contact with Meghan. We can take a short break, she said, tone neutral, and reset a little. Meghan's smile sharpened. If you need one, she said. I'm quite used to difficult conversations. For the first time, a flicker of irritation crossed Gayle's face. Barely there, but real. She pressed her lips together, then looked straight into the camera. When we come back, she said, voice calm but clipped, we'll talk about Meghan's work, her foundation, and what she wants the public to actually focus on, if she's willing to tell us. The band picked up the cue, the red light switched off, and the show cut to commercial. But in the studio, there was no reset, no easing. Meghan stared forward, jaw set, as a makeup artist hovered uncertainly nearby. Gayle shuffled her cards with more force than necessary. Tony leaned back with a quiet sigh. Nate rubbed a hand over his face. This wasn't just a tough interview anymore. It was a live, slow-motion collision, and they all knew the biggest impact was yet to come. Gayle King finally reaches her breaking point. Meghan is removed from the show. The atmosphere in the CBS Mornings studio had shifted from mild discomfort to full-blown tension. Even the quiet hum of cameras felt louder, sharper. Meghan sat tall in her navy dress, legs crossed, chin lifted with the kind of poise that didn't say confidence. It said superiority. Gayle King's red suit glowed under the studio lights, but the warmth she was known for was long gone. Tony and Nate exchanged subtle glances. They could feel it. Everyone could. Still, Gayle tried once more. One last act of grace. Meghan, she began gently, a lot of viewers wonder how you and Prince Harry are navigating parenthood now. Just as parents.